really had a wonderful time on this film. I'd never worked with 3 directors before, which was kind of cool. I'd worked with 2. We did an extraterrestrial with 2 directors, which was very cool. But this was 3, you know, and it was interesting. If you got the names there, like Francois Simard was the kind of person who dealt mostly with the technology and the cameras and stuff like that, and the crew. Johan Carl, Johan was dealt almost exclusively with us actors, and then Anouk, which was Johan's fiance at the time. They're now married. These are all childhood friends, these 3. Anouk kind of pulled them together every once in a while when there was a disagreement. She was like I think she got the deciding vote. But it was almost seamless to work with them. They were so in tune with each other and with what they wanted. And this was kind of like a childhood passion of theirs, this kind of idea. When I first read it, I thought, they said, when they first sent it to me, they said, think of a comic book. And I went, okay, and I read it, and I thought, wow, these characters really are like a comic book. They're like bigger than life, oversized, kind of, my brother, when I was telling my brother about it, he said, you mean like Buckaroo Banzai? And I said, yeah, like Buckaroo Banzai or Repo Man, you know, that kind of over-the-top deal. And, but there's no winking at the camera here. There's no kind of tongue-in-cheek. This is, everyone's committed to creating this kind of universe, for better or for worse, when we were making it, and trusting them. I was taken aback the first 5 minutes, because I think for me, when I commit to something, I have my own idea of what a story structure or what it's going to look like, and most of the time it's not what the end product looks like, but it gives me kind of like the framework of a mansion or a building that I can walk around in as a character when I'm telling the story in my head. And their structure of the story was completely different. The characters are very comic book, and that's not, I'm not putting this down when I say that. It's just a storytelling technique, and but it's not framed like comic book cells. It's like a much more kind of I would guess the indie handheld story, you know, very, very kind of low budget kind of feel to it, which it was low budget, but it is so charming in its commitment to what it's doing. And that's the only word I can think of that makes sense to me. It has a charm about it, a very kind of simplistic charm. Now, at the same time, people's heads are being ripped off, arms are being cut off, there's blood squirting gratuitously everywhere. I walk around with a golf club, basically using it liberally on people that don't do as I tell them. And, but at the same, and the language different with there's a couple of New Zealand actors in the film and stuff like that who can hit an F-bomb stronger than, it's between Scots people and Australians and New Zealanders. When they say fuck, it just sounds better. So that's all going on in the film too. The character I play, I'm going on here because I know your time is very limited. The Zeus character that I'm playing, I basically, when they sent it to me, I read it a couple of times, and I took this Skype call from him, and I said, let me give you an idea of what I want to do with it. I said, it's kind of like playing a Shakespearean type King Lear type character, almost like if Aldo Ray had gotten to play Shakespeare, you know, and they didn't know who Aldo Ray was.
Wow.
So I said, let me give you a rendition, and they just all lit up and said, that's wonderful, because I'm not interested in repeating what I've done before. This character is almost operatic in his size, as every component of the story is, but it's not slick. This is down and dirty filmmaking. I mean, one person said that they were told that it was Road Warrior without cars, but Road Warrior on BMX bikes. And that's kind of clever, but I don't think it's accurate if you're going to use that for a hook in the story, because I just keep saying charming. It's a charming love story. And whether they meant it or not, there's kind of like parallels with the idea of, you know, how our modern children are left alone with too much technology to kind of forage for themselves without love and affection and hugs and stuff like that. Well, the character in the film, his parents have been killed, and he's by himself in a post-apocalyptic world in, let's say, 1993, 1997. he kind of scrounges around for things, and his connection to things like, Viewmasters and bubble machines, and lives in an underground bunker, and my character Zeus is all the water in this area is completely tainted, and I, as the only place, I render things down into fresh water, and I have the the consortium, and therefore I have all the power in the neighborhood in this area, this wasteland, and so when I had a vision of what the story was going to look like. When I saw it, I was actually taken aback for the first 5 minutes. I wasn't sure if I was comfortable because it was so jarring to what I expected. And then I fell into it, and my sister, I was watching it on the laptop 2 days ago, and my sister was the next to me. She says, is that an animated film? And I said, no, because she said, it sounds animated. She came in, I showed it to her, and she went, oh, wow, it's not. And it was very gritty, very, very low budget, but it stays true to itself. And, what's kind of cool, I was thinking about it earlier today, is that they don't have to satisfy a distributor, they don't have to satisfy a studio, and they don't have to satisfy some money people. They were able to do what they wanted to do, to have that integrity of that singleness of purpose of what they want to accomplish, and it works. I'm here helping them along because I really think it works.
So where was it filmed?
We shot it about a year ago right now.
Where?
A year ago right now. In north of Montreal, in Quebec, Montreal, in Canada.
Okay.
In quarry pits, and sections of the city had been torn down and busted up. And a whole section just outside of Montreal that had been kind of semi-destroyed.
Okay.
And it's quite cool.
So, can you...
But like I said, if you're expecting T4 or some kind of big budget slick film, you're going to be sorely disappointed. This is not a McDonald's. This is a mom and pop restaurant that serves up a pretty good meal.
So what kind of, if you're allowed to, what sort of a budget were they working with?
I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure. I don't want to say, because too many people judge the quality of something based by its money.
Oh, sure.
I got to tell you, nobody had all the money went into the film. It wasn't spent on somebody's goddamn Winnebago, or having their personal chef flowing it. None of that shit was going on. No, it's every penny, every dollar, and I got to tell you, the directors and writers, the three of them, they were down and dirty and covered in mud like the rest of us.
Oh.
There was no frills on this project, and it was cold. God damn, it was cold.
So, did you do all your stunts, or was there a lot of physical work to it?
No, there's not a lot of physical. I get blown up at one point, and I did that, and then they brought in a guy to do the harness pull on it because they wanted to yank this guy 35, 40 feet, and I said, yeah, I ain't doing that. I'm going to be 65 in the spring. You can pull his ass all over the bloody quarry. I don't care. But no, it's not an action film in that sense. It's almost like, goddamn, a futuristic kind of post-apocalyptic three-penny opera. I was talking to my brother about it, and he says that's a great thing about something that's unique. You can't describe something that's unique because it has a uniqueness about it. I'm telling you, I'm not trying to sell you a bill of goods here. I wouldn't support this film if I didn't think it delivered. It is worth seeing.
Well, I've definitely been interested in seeing it since I've read about it.
It really does have a charm about itself that I just think, I really mean it's charming, and it's got blood squirting, and it's got F-bombs. I disembowel a guy with his intestines tied to the back wheel of a bike just to get some information out of him, I have a henchman who's called Skeletor or Skeletron. I think it's Skeletor, and you never see his face other than this skull that is his face, and he runs around on a BMX bike, and he's 6'2", and he's on a BMX bike. So, kind of wonderful, actually.
It's
You know, we have a cowboy that goes and rides around on a trike with a sidecar. We have a giant with a sack on his head that gets his head crushed. I got to be careful. It's kind of comic book glorified, tongue-in-cheek violence without being tongue-in-cheek. It's quite good. I just say charming, and I think it really has a charm to it. You know, and Monroe Chambers, I did not know. I knew he was on a TV show called Degrassi Street, which was a show when I was a kid, so I didn't pay much attention to it, you know. And when I came back from this film, I have a 16-year-old. She was 15 at the time, and she, you know, goes to a private girls' school and all that, and they're all sitting around the TV room. When I came back, she goes, "Hi, Dad, were you?" You know, and I said, "Yeah, I just finished that film." And they said, "Oh, Mr. Ironside, what were you in?" I said, "A thing called Turbo Kid." And they said, "Who's in it?" And I said, "Well, it's kind of a post about." I told them my normal spiel, and I said, "There's Nook so-and-so, directed it." And no, they said, "No, who's that?" I said, "Aaron Jeffries, Lawrence LaBeouf, you know, Monroe Chambers, you know, Romano Orsada." And two of the girls started shaking. One of them I thought had like an epileptic fit. And I said, "Are you all right?" And another one got up and walked right into the side of our flat screen TV on its pedestal. And I said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Monroe Chambers, they're all Degrassi freaks." These girls had grown up watching Monroe. They'd watched him from the time they're 11 till they're 15.
right.
He's this heartthrob guy. You know, now you and I probably don't get it because we're like, I don't know how old you are, but I'm way beyond getting turned on by some young buck with a small ass, you know. But these girls just absolutely crazy. One girl started crying and said, "You talked to him?" And I went, you know what I mean? It kind of, my daughter just sort of sat there and said, "Oh, geez." She got up when I went in the kitchen, and I was there. I said, "Are they going to be all right?" Because the one girl was crying. And she says, "Yeah, they just..." Because look, I've had everyone from Arnold Schwarzenegger to whatever walk into my kitchen, open my fridge, make a sandwich. You know, it's not a big deal. You know, my daughter's been raised around that sort of thing. You know, "Who is it? Oh yeah, how you doing?" So you know what I mean. And
Right.
she's not being disrespectful. It's just the circus business. We're in the circus, you know. And but these girls who were in school, they were like hurting themselves thinking about Monroe Chambers. And I just realized he's coming down to spend 3 weeks with us, and I haven't told my daughter, which probably is a good thing. I should check that with my. If he's coming down after Sundance, he's got some interviews he's got to do. And I said, when we were talking, I said, "Well, why don't you stay at my place?" So he's coming down after Sundance. I should warn my daughter. Or maybe I shouldn't.
Do you? There's one more movie I want to talk to you about. It's digging kind of deep because it just came out on Blu-ray. They just released. No, it came out on Blu-ray.
Which one?
Spacehunter: Adventures in the Forbidden Zone.
Oh my God!
I'm digging deep, aren't I?
You know that was originally shot in 3D.
Oh yeah. No, I know the whole history of it. I've got. They just re-released it on Blu-ray for the first time, so it was fresh in my mind. I actually just watched it 2 days ago, and so
they're very similar. This Zeus character and God, what's his name?
Overdog.
Overdog. My brother just yelled Overdog for the other room. I lied. Yes, Overdog. What do you want to talk? What do you want to know about Spin? There's actually a lot of similarities, except that Overdog's a big, bloated, over-the-top production, and we probably made this film for whatever it cost to fly Peter Strauss up to the project. But,
I just wanted to hear if he had any interesting little stories or anecdotes about shooting that movie.
I'll tell you what. Molly Ringwald, when we did Spacehunter, Molly had just done what was the Shakespearean thing she did? She did one film before that, and it was a modern rendition of one of the Shakespearean tragedies. And my brother's, I'm at my brother's, and he said he'd look it it up. But and she came in and she was like 14 or 15, and she wanted so much to mature. She would, when nobody was looking in the makeup trailer, she'd grab a makeup sponge and give herself cleavage, or try to, by putting a little darkness in the middle of her chest. She was very much into wanting to be a young woman, and she was such a kid, which was kind of cool. The other thing for that film is that I was in makeup. I would come in the morning at 4:30 for a 9:30 set call. It would take anywhere from 4 to 5 hours to put all the makeup on. It was 16 appliances, including the teeth. And then they put me in that tulip, kind of, with mechanical arms and everything. That was Tom Berman, and Steve Rapport was his assistant on that. That created Overdog the makeup. So nobody ever got to meet. The Tempest. Yeah, the film that Molly did before Spacehunter was The Tempest. I think that was with John Cassavetes. So she had, and Gina Rowland, yeah. But on that film, it was interesting that nobody ever got to meet me out of makeup, because I was in 4 hours before anyone, and it took an hour and a half to take it off. So Lamont Johnson, the director, I ran into him about 5 years after the film at an old steam bath in Los Angeles. There's the old Pico Burnside steam bath that goes down. It's an old Russian shit. And Lamont came in. He had a club foot. He's passed now, but he came coming in, and I said, "Lamont, how are you doing?" He said, "Excuse me, I don't know you." And I said, "I lied." And he goes, "Oh, Michael, how are you?" Because he had never met me without my makeup on. And that character, I didn't eat with the rest of the people on the crew and stuff like that, because he was kind of like a formidable-looking character, and I didn't want to throw people off their food. So when I got out of that apparatus that my character lived in and left the makeup on, I'd go and have lunch by myself in the makeup. People, we shot for about 2.5 months up there doing that. People would come and start talking to me in this area of this warehouse we're shooting, was set up for the makeup, like I was some monk. Because once you took those chrome teeth out, the face would collapse, and he looked like some ancient wise sage. Overdog would. I'd be sitting there in my leotards and upper body t-shirts with this full makeup on, and people would come in and tell me about their broken marriages, or their children that were on drugs, or some guy that was not, I won't mention his name, he was one of the associate producers, didn't know whether he was gay or not, because he liked the idea of having sex with men, but he also liked having sex with women. And I remember Tom Berman was taking a nap behind the makeup counter, and about 3 of these people come through, and he sat up and he said, "Have you been putting up with this fucking shit every day?" And I said, "They just come." He said, "What have we created here? We should be shooting this. This would make an incredible documentary." And I said, "Yeah, but can you imagine trying to get the rights for people to sign off on what they've said?" Because we had everything from producers to like the guy that was the boom man coming and confessing to this thing that they thought was wise. It was weird.
Is there any...
Time to wrap up, please.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is there anything that you want to share in closing about Turbo Kid?
What would I want? I think it's one of those unique projects where the people that wrote the story, made the film, and are delivering exactly what they wanted. They got the maximum amount out of what the money was. They had fun. They satisfied themselves and were respectful to an audience, as opposed to people that are terrified of studios and money and distribution. And so many of the distribution, and not so much distribution, but the studios and financial people that are making films these days have no idea about fucking storytelling. They're financiers. We're in a pretty dark era right now, the last 20 or so years, that most of the filmmakers have no history in filmmaking, the people who are financing films. So that's why we're seeing Batman, the third sequel, part 2, the remake, or they're reshooting things that they think they understand. This film is true filmmaking. It's a story from beginning to end. It has its own charm about it. It has characters that are uniquely indigenous to the story, and I think it's a fun ride.